election of new officers. And from the people present, is there anybody that would like to be on the nominating committee that is a delegate? We have Steve Carr. Eunice Glover. I'm sorry, Eunice. I couldn't remember myself this morning when I looked in the mirror. Okay, so that's two. And what did you say your name was? Pablo?
Okay, there's Eunice Glover as well.
Steve Carr. Steve Carr.
Yeah.
Following up on that, are there any members that would like to nominate someone else to be on the committee?
They have to make that noise?
Yes, I believe so. They have to be a delegate. And they cannot be on the board currently, on the executive board. Okay, I would like to nominate Ola Reynolds. That's what happens when you're not here, Ola.
That's correct. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tuma, for standing in. We're going to move on to, it seems as though we have established our nominating committee, so that is good for the 2019 election of officers. Bylaws say that we should have this item on our September agenda, and that's what we've done. So moving right along, since we still do not have a quorum at this time, we're going to go along to the grant application. So I forwarded an email to everyone, hopefully you received it, in reference to the grant application. So we now have a grant application. The deadline is, I want to say, December 7th. Thank you, Mr. McKinley. And so at this time, normally what we do is our executive committee is kind of like the committee for the grant. However, we always have opened it up for anyone who would like to serve on that committee with us in reference to how we want that grant money to be spent. Our next executive committee meeting is October 7th, so mark your calendars from 4 to 5. We really try to keep it to an hour. We don't always make that goal. However, we do want to encourage anyone who is interested in attending the meeting and or serving on the grant committee, please do so. Ms. Phillips is working on a location for the remainder of all of our executive committee meetings. We are looking at Metropolitan Library as at least trying to get them secured, that location secured for October. What we've been trying to do is kind of go throughout the city so that it's fair to everyone based on where they live. And so we'll keep you all posted on where that location will be. Mr. Martin, did you want to say something?
Oh, yes, I had a question. I got the email from Erica, and I didn't see where on it the amounts of money that were being granted this year was stated. Do we know that?
Oh, this is a grant application for the upcoming.
Right, no, I understand, but generally they state that no grant application greater than some amount of money.
Oh, you're right, I didn't see
And
that either.
I didn't see that. I didn't know if anybody knew what that sum was.
Does anyone know what the sum is?
That's on,
Is it on the application? I didn't see it either.
well, it's on page 2. So, like previous years,
up to 4K for NPUs and 5K for Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, but based off of remaining availability, you have discretion to award additional amounts.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Ms. Martin, you said, does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was an open end.
Okay, so we have formally done that as well as far as the grant application. At this time, we are going to make a comment about board appointments. So we have some open seats on the Beltline TADAC. We have 3 open seats. Mr. Martin's seat, his term will expire at the end of this year. And so be looking at residents or yourselves if you're interested in serving TADAC, please let us know. You can email us at apadatlanta@gmail.com. And that goes to the public as well. We'll post it. This is kind of like a public announcement now, as we always do in our meetings, but also we do post it on our Facebook page as well. We do not have any presentations for this month's meeting. We do, however, next month, we have Commissioner Keisha Powell, who is the Commissioner for Department of Watershed here at the City of Atlanta. She'll be here with us, as well as Chief Judge Cassandra Kirk of Fulton County Magistrate Court. So those are our 2 speakers for next month. November and December, we do not have speakers. We will have our elections in November, and in December, we will have our award ceremony. At this time, we're going to go ahead and do roll call, though it doesn't appear we have a quorum yet, but we're going to go ahead and do the first roll call. Ms. Hope?
NPUA, no representative. NPUB, Richard Rao, delegate, John Muzzy, alternate. NPUC, no delegate, Zach Goldberg is the alternate. NPUD, Jim Martin.
Here.
NPUE, James Snyder. NPUF, Debbie Skopczynski.
Present.
NPUG, Ola Reynolds. NPUH, Barbara Hubbard here. NPUI, Jennifer Freeman.
Present.
NPUJ, Al Bartown. Benjamin Dickerson, alternate.
Here.
NPUK, Chad Smith, delegate. Leah Hardman, alternate. NPUL, Bob Jones, delegate. Maurice White, alternate. NPUM, Michelle Schreiner, delegate. Rashid Muhammad,
Here.
alternate. NPUN, Amy Stout, delegate. Catherine Woodley, alternate. NPUO, Carl Holt, delegate. Marcus Owens, alternate. NPUP, Rasheen Hunter, delegate. Hope Hoffman, alternate. NPUQ, David Gadichu Smith, delegate. Eric Toomer,
Present.
alternate. NPUR, Alfred White, delegate. NPUS, Chris Brown, delegate. Nick has alternate. NPUT, Terry Ross, delegate. Donovan Dodds, alternate. NPUV, Columbus Ward, delegate. Stephanie Flowers, alternate. NPUW, Jack Grumler, delegate. Steve Carr, alternate. NPUX, Michael Hopkins, delegate. Ruben Birdie, alternate. NPUY, Dana Scott, delegate. Gloria Hawkins Wynn, alternate. MPUZ, Ann Phillips, delegate. Sharita Grant, alternate. That concludes our delegate count.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Count for us, nice number, we have 13. Thank you. Okay, the count is 12, so we do not have a quorum as of yet. So hopefully someone will come in and we'll have a quorum and we'll be able to vote on the items that we need to vote on. As we move forward, we're going to go to our board reports. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Martin or any other Beltline TADAC representatives who are here, if you'd like to give an update at this time.
Is that the only one?
Yes, you are. Here's.
Okay, yeah, TADAC met, let's see, day before yesterday, it was Thursday. We got to meet the new interim Beltline CEO, and he was fairly impressive. We discussed various matters for our subcommittees, our annual report out. There was a Beltline quarterly briefing, which was on Tuesday. I did not attend that because it conflicted with my NPU meetings, and we'll be meeting in subcommittees early next month. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Carter?
I was at the Tuesday Beltline quarterly briefing. There were two main prominently mentioned public comments. One was on the lack of affordable housing. The second, of course, is the Beltline Rail Now. And multiple speakers spoke to both of those two primary subjects. And there was a nice film that was displayed for the CEO or interim CEO Clyde Higgs spoke, and it was narrated by Kerry Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. At this time, I'm asking Ms. Alessandra Bush if she would come up and give us an update on the Code Enforcement Commission.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The City of Atlanta's Code Enforcement Commission meetings are 1 month behind us reporting, for me to report to you. So now I guess we're synced because the September meeting was canceled. But we did meet in August, August 23rd. And the meeting, of course, was chaired by Councilmember George Shepherd. As standard practice, updates are given by the Code Enforcement Department, Public Works, the Municipal Court, and of course we have new and old business. From the previous report, I had mentioned that Atlanta's 311 and ClickFix app is going mobile. It is now mobile, so all the MPU chairs should report, or however you report in your meetings, if the code enforcement representative is not present for your MPU meeting, that citizens can now report code violations by way of their phones, 311 and ClickFix. In complying with President, with your request to keep my report short, I will say that 12 demolition projects for FY19 were completed. 17 demolition projects were awarded to the city contractors. 24 demolition projects are pending an award. 4 clean and closed projects were completed by the city contractor. And there's a pending approval for a new demolition and asbestos abatement contract, pending approval by the city council. Public Works had a very long report, but I'll just say that Georgia's paper industry recycles 8% of all paper consumed in the United States. Just as a trivial information, when you all travel outside of 285 to our other 158 counties, you may see some pine trees, and those are pine tree farms. So Georgia is kind of a leader in recycling in that aspect. But this report comes from the 2019 Trust Fund Reauthorization, which is a very long, detailed report. If you would like more information, I could email it to you. But the city of Atlanta receives funds from that trust fund to address the recycling and tire problems that we have in the city. And if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that the tire disposal issue is a big problem in the city of Atlanta because the state doesn't have a lot of personnel addressing it. They only have 7 people in the EPD department addressing the whole state. So, and then a lot of tire resellers are not registered. So trying to keep up with the businesses that are registered versus non-registered selling tires is a big issue in Atlanta. Due to the cyber attack, the municipal court recovery timeline was reported by Judge Portis, and a lot of court dates were reset. So that is an issue that Judge Portis reported on, and the municipal court handles an average of 5,000 cases per week. So if you all do the math with that. The creation of a code enforcement academy was discussed, and the committee has met once to discuss the development and how to approach replicating a code enforcement academy for the citizens of Atlanta. So the meeting was canceled once again. I know the city council has a lot on its plate, so when we meet, I'll let you know and report. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bush. First of all, I want to say that you are doing an outstanding job. We really appreciate you and being committed, coming to the meetings, going to the commission meetings, and reporting out to us.
Okay, well, the credit goes to a lot of people. Hampton University and the University of Georgia for training me.
Very good. However, thank you, Ms. Bush, because we know that this is volunteer. This is on your time, and we really appreciate it. I do want to ask a question. I wanted to make sure if you knew. When you talked about the demolitions, do we know in what communities those demolitions are in? Just curious to know.
Yes, but, yes, I can provide that. Last time I did. I can provide it by NPUs, or I can just give you the entire list. Whatever you.
Yeah, so email your report and I'll forward it to the body. And
Okay.
if it's not too much, it would
No,
be
it's not.
to ask you to divide it by NPU, I think that would be good.
Yes, they listed by NPU.
Okay.
So, you know, our city is growing, and there are a lot of things happening in our communities right now. So, I would just suggest to the NPU chairs that when we have our NPU meetings, we not just listen to the report that is given by the code enforcement rep. And in that vein, I have some Atlanta Community Engagement Playbooks over here that you may want to share with your fellow residents, because there is a process to dealing with the city, and like you all know. So, if you understand negotiating with the city and, filing complaints or whatever, I think you'd have a better, we'd all have a better result for our request, but I'll forward that to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carr?
Thank you. Two items. Number one, about tires. There is no economic incentive for anybody to pick up a tire. Anytime anybody buys new tires, they have to pay a disposal fee. That money goes to the state of Georgia. It then goes to the general fund. That means it's been stolen by the state government. There's no economic incentive to pick up any tire or to take a discarded tire to a proper facility, tire shredder. And legislation will be offered again at the state legislature. Got through the Senate last year, it did not get through the House this year because it went to the wrong committee. Jay Powell, a representative from Camilla, Georgia, has authored again and again and again. He is the chair of the Appropriations Committee. He is insisting upon all dedicated funds go to where they're supposed to go to. Put an economic incentive on picking up tires, they'll disappear. Second item I wanted to mention is, I believe we have enough people for a quorum. I'm asking for a quorum call.
Yeah, we'll be ready to do that as soon as you got off the mic. Thank you, Mr. I apologize, Ms. Phillips. Ms. Phillips did say she wanted to make a comment. Go ahead.
Ms. Bush, if you would please, even though I know your recent meeting was canceled, but for the sake of our viewing audience, will you let us know when your regularly scheduled Code Enforcement Commission meeting is?
The regular scheduled meeting is held on the fourth Thursday in this room, City Council Room 1, Committee Room 1. 1 o'clock, 1 to 3, generally.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll take our second roll call. And ma'am, yes, you have to, yes, public comment.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, NPUA, no representative. NPUB, Richard Rao, delegate. John Muzzy, alternate. NPUC, no delegate. Zach Goldberg, alternate. NPUD, Jim Martin.
Here.
NPUE, James Snyder. Delegate Brian Harris, alternate. NPUF, Debbie Skopczynski,
Present.
delegate. NPUG, Older Reynolds, delegate. Keith Sharp, alternate. NPUH, Barbara Hubbard, delegate. Charles Shelton, alternate. NPUI, Jennifer Freeman,
Present.
delegate. Eunice Glover, alternate. NPUJ, Al Martell, delegate. Benjamin Dickerson, alternate. NPUK, Chad Smith, delegate. Lita Hardman, alternate. NPUL, Bob Jones, delegate. Maurice White, alternate. NPUM, Michelle Schreiner, delegate. Rashid Muhammad, alternate. NPUN, Amy Stout, delegate. Catherine Woodland, alternate. NPUP, Rasheen Hunter, delegate. Hope Hoffman, alternate. NPUQ, David Geddes Smith, delegate. Eric Toomer, alternate. NPUR, Alfred White, delegate. NPUS, Chris Brown, delegate. Nick Hess, alternate. NPUT, Terry Ross, delegate. Donovan Dines, alternate. NPUV, Columbus Ward, delegate. Stephanie Flowers, alternate. NPUW, Jack Grumler, delegate. Steve Carr, alternate. NPUX, Michael Hopkins, delegate. Ruben Burney, alternate. MPUY, Dana Scott delegate, Gloria Hawkins Wynn alternate, MPUZ, Ann Phillips delegate, Sharita Grant alternate. Looks concludes.
Thank you. Okay. Good to see you again.
Thank you for the intervention. With respect to code enforcement, when Mayor Kasim Reed, just before he left office, I sent photographs and other material about graffiti and other matters. To this date, I have not had a response, and I'll be glad to refer to this body. Also, litter. I live on Auburn Avenue, and that area has patches of homeless people, and you always know when they're there because of the litter. So some type of action, community action, or code enforcement action to deal with that. I have never yet seen a homeless person not leave litter. They either urinate and defecate or leave the litter. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you let us know what your name is for the records for that?
Oh, yes, thank you, yes. Dr. Spence Lewis, MD.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Again, Spence Lewis.
MD. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Bush?
Yes, to reply to Dr. Lewis's comments, it may be well that you attend the code enforcement meeting as well, because you can comment and get an insight into how code violations are handled, and that may help. I understand your displeasure because I live in the Martin Luther King Lowry district where there is a lot of trash and homeless people are entering all of our neighborhoods. So that may be bode well for you to attend the meeting and voice your opinions there also. Thank you.
Also, Doctor, I believe you're an MPUM. Is that correct? Okay. And so you can also, of course you know this, you can go to your MPU meeting as well, and when most MPUs, they have a code enforcement officer that will be there, and then you can go ahead and give them locations, dates, address, as well as if you want to use 311, they do have an app. I'm not sure what it is, it's probably ATL 311. Yeah, and that way you actually can send an email, take a picture, because they really like to see pictures.
I get really extensive pictures.
Okay, all righty.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Toomer?
I was wondering, Ms. Bush, even if she does not attend, can you bring her concerns up at the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the solid waste representative as well as Major Hobbs, who is over code enforcement, attends the meeting, and I will bring that to their attention. But the information that goes to citizens, I think I will also bring that up because they're reprinting the code enforcement booklet. But as you know, we have senior citizens, we have millennials, we have a variety of different age groups in our city. So we are looking at the different ways to address code enforcement. I understand her displeasure because it took me 10 years to get one building knocked down. So, you know, on the news, and this is just a sidebar, if you watched the news yesterday in DeKalb County, where a house is abandoned and the people complained, and finally the city cleared the property, but they can't find the owner. And that's a problem. And it sounds like, what do you mean you can't find the owner? Somebody's paying taxes. But there is a process in terms of locating all of these LLCs, and out-of-state property owners. So the city is also looking at how to address that. And instead of, and I think I reported last time, in sending letters where the absentee landlords do not have to come to court, they are going to start mandating that they appear in court, a more severe type of, violation or punishment. So there's a lot of things happening.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a quorum of 14, and so at this time, we're going to move on to, I'm gonna let Ms. Hubbard speak. And then Mr. Carl, is it about the quorum?
Well, it was about the last item that Barbara Bush mentioned.
Okay, so let Ms. Hubbard speak. Ms. Hubbard will speak, and then Mr. Carr, and then we'll get on with the business of today's meeting.
Just to piggyback on Dr. Lewis' concerns, Public Works / Sanitary Services has hired additional suite officers, and she may want to contact Public Works to find out who the officer is assigned to her area. He may be able to help with her concerns about the litter and trash in that area. And also, I would like to say that the location of the shredding and shredding materials that was being held at the West End has been relocated to Greenbrier Mall. So it's no longer at West End, it's located at Greenbrier Mall. They also offer shredding. Thank you.
Good. On the third Saturday of every month. Mm-hmm. Mr. Carr?
Regarding identification of ownership of real estate, Jim Schneider and other people can very easily get on their computer and find someone, if it's a corporation, hedge fund, an LLC, any other type of artificial, fictive organization, you can find that too. Then the city should cite and bring to court. And all the judge has to say is the representative, the agent of service for any of these organizations has to appear in court. If they don't, it's contempt of court. The judge has one other mechanism that anybody can use. It's called a lis pendens. It's used in divorce actions. It freezes everything. You cannot transfer the property forever until this device is lifted off of the property and is filed in Superior Court. It goes right along with the title. Why the city doesn't use it? It costs $5. They don't use it.
Mr. Carr, at this time, I want to, we're going to go ahead and do our voting items, but I want to say that we won't lose a quorum, but someone has to leave at 11. Mr. Toomer was going to leave at, no, I believe Ms. Stout said that she had to leave by 11:30, I believe, and Mr. Toomer said he needed to leave at 11, but he would stay. So if one person leaves, then we will have a quorum. So just keep that in mind. If you all can stay, we really would appreciate it. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve today's agenda with one amendment. I need to add, and I will do it under the committee reports, and Mr. Martin will give us an update, and that is regarding the ad hoc committee relating to conflict resolution and MPU system recommendations. So I want to add that.
Jennifer?
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended and to adopt I guess we don't have minutes, do we? So I can't make a motion to adopt minutes.
Well, she's going to actually have to recite them. because I didn't have a chance to review those in writing or format them. So we can go ahead and verbally put them into a record.
Okay, I just make a motion
Recorded.
to adopt the amended agenda.
Got it, okay?
Second.
Okay, I've got a second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of adopting the agenda, today's agenda, please show by raise of hands.
Fourteen.
14. No, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, as it relates to the minutes, I'm going to ask Ms. Hubbard to read August minutes. And what I will do is, I believe our bylaws say that we've done this before, that they have been verbally read, and we have went ahead, if someone made a motion, put a motion on the floor to approve them, and seconded, we could vote on it. But we can review that, but in the meantime, I'm gonna ask Ms. Hubbard to go ahead and just verbally recite August minutes.
Okay, Atlanta Planning Board monthly meeting, August 18th, was held at Atlanta City Hall. Meeting began at 10 a.m. Roll call was taken by corresponding Secretary Hubbard, 5 delegates, 2 alternates, no quorum, taken at 10:10. Jason Estevez, President of APS Board of Education, was guest speaker. He spoke on 2017 through 2018 APS performance information, back to school bash with 9,000 students attending, improved access to school board meetings, T-Mobile grant to enable 6th and 7th graders to receive laptops. APS has owned resource officers, 8 new principals, and 19 assistant principals this year. The Vice Chair of APS was also present. Questions were asked by Ola Reynolds and Jack Brumner. There were 6 persons in line to ask questions of Mr. Estevez. President Freeman asked that only delegates or alternates ask questions at that time and the others wait for public comment time. Questions also asked by Jim Martin, Benjamin Dickerson, Terry Ross, and Ann Phillips. City Council will be hosting work session on TADS on Tuesday, August 21st. Second roll call was taken at 11:02 a.m., 10 delegates, 4 alternates, no quorum. Board reports, Bill Burke, Bozarth, Invest Atlanta, Michael Hopkins, Atlanta Citizens Review Board, Barbara Hubbard, Keep Atlanta Beautiful, no report. President Freeman reported on notes from 8/5 executive meeting. Council President Felicia Moore was present. She will be invited back. Ad hoc committee being formed for input on strengthening NPUs. Jim Martin will chair. More MARTA information is available outside on tables. Name tags available for 25 alternates and delegates. Ms. Freeman is requesting 50, expecting to begin using in 2019. Increasing grant program from planning. Mayor's office not voted on this year. Ms. Freeman encourages alternates and delegates to encourage council members to vote positive on this increase. Ms. Freeman asks that Steve Carr give an update on Jim Snyder, who is in rehab. Jim Martin, CDHR Zoning Committee gave report. Next zoning meeting will be held on September 10th at Chin Chin Restaurant in Powell Mill Plaza. Reminder about tax abatement resolution. Ms. Freeman asked APAB. Ms. Freeman stated that APAB has Facebook page. Please like for information on APAB meetings, etc. Jim Martin gave his phone number and email address for contact. Terry Ross, Committee on Council, spoke on parking reimbursement for delegates and alternates. Macia Williams will chair subcommittee on this issue.
you mentioned, you did not include about the conflict resolution. So we need to add that, because that's actually what prompted the ad hoc committee. And I believe that that is it. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the August minutes, meeting minutes, please show by raise of hands. 11, any abstentions? Is that one? One abstention? Okay. Okay. Any opposed? One opposed. Okay, that motion carries. What I will do is, and we did look at our bylaws, and it doesn't say one way or the other, but what we will do is we'll make sure we get them in writing to you all, and I'll make sure that they're signed and everything, and have been archived so that when planning requests for those, sometimes legal will for auditing purposes, we'll make sure that they receive those approved minutes. Okay. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Martin to go ahead and lead the discussion in reference to our resolutions that we have before us. And everyone should have a copy of both of the resolutions in front of you. Thank you.
Okay, you have two resolutions. The first of these is with regard to incentive tax abatements. We brought this one forward last month for informational purposes. It is out of the CHR committee, so it doesn't require a second. It is here before you today as a business item. We are requesting a vote on this. Essentially, the resolution calls for any incentive tax abatement that is granted by either the Atlanta Development Authority or the Fulton County Development Authority to be approved by the other development authority in order to become effective. Additionally, we are calling on neither development authority to grant incentive tax abatements for developments that have already received incentives from the other development authority, which would of course include tax allocation districts within the city, which are administered by Invest Atlanta. So basically the intention of this is to try and stem the erosion of our tax base through incentive abatements, which seem to be getting handed out rather liberally these days. Questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve has been properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the tax abatement resolution, please show by raise of hands. Okay, that's 14. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, Mr. Martin, on to the next one.
Okay, let's see, the second resolution, which is brought to you for informational purposes, was approved this month at the CHR committee meeting, and is with regard to the Gulch development, encouraging the city council to delay action and carefully vet this project. This has been sort of a rapidly moving target, as I'm sure you all know. I have some sort of informational things here that I also sent out by email to Jennifer, which is essentially my analysis of the finances of this project, which, without going into too much detail, essentially, the numbers that are the top line numbers that have been put forward to the public don't hold up to scrutiny. In fact, the Unicap estimates that have also been put forward don't even agree with those numbers. So there are obvious problems with the proposal, and there's no obvious reason for haste in approving the proposal, and so what we are calling for is delay in order to properly vet the proposal prior to any action. And on a related matter, while I was sitting here, I got an email indicating that Georgia Stand-Up is holding a meeting on this topic at 12:30 today at the IBEW building for anyone who's interested.
Awesome.
Point of clarification, on this resolution, because of the time-sensitive nature of it, and it seems to be in good standing by my eyes, I would like to ask you if you would like to change the way it was introduced, and you said it was for informational purposes. I would like to make this an emergency motion to call a vote on this motion.
Okay, I think we'll Then, a motion is on the floor, can I get a second? Okay, it's been second. Okay, any discussion? Mr. Carr?
Since we have a history with this body dealing with the communication of our resolutions, I would like for both resolutions to be sent to the administration of the city as well as all council people forthwith. Let's also include the interim clerk as well. The history is that it's sent to the clerk, it has gone to the file, circular file. There's only 2 motions in the last 40 years that I've been able to locate that were locatable.
Point taken, I believe that is currently our policy, is it not?
That's correct.
I want
And,
to emphasize that.
right, and we also, Mr. Webb is no longer the interim clerk, he is the clerk.
Good.
Yes. Ma'am.
One of the areas I noticed in this golf issue, and being that they're asking for community involvement, that there is no contribution for health care, not even to send in a mobile clinic. And as we all know, in this community, we have disparities in health, in diabetes, in prostate cancer, in maternal health. So it's very important to look at the health input of a community. And so I would recommend, if even there has to be a vote on it, that it go before the council regarding a contribution in the golf project to have a health element. It could even be a bus that comes in once a month. Emory has a health bus. Morehouse School of Medicine has a health bus. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, ready for the question? All in favor of the resolution before you, which is the Gulch project? Please show by raise of hands. Thirteen. Any opposed? One. Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I may, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Or, well, it's not started out as a motion, I guess I need to ask the question first. I think that our resolutions should have a number, because each of our resolutions should have a number, so that we are able to locate them, and when we're talking to council and the clerk court, we can refer to that number. Their mentality, and pretty much ours now as chairpersons, is numbers. Because every ordinance, text amendment, whatever comes to us, has a number. So I think that, for anything that we do for the rest of 218, should start out with 218, 218 or whatever. But I recommend that we do from now on assign a number to any resolution that this body comes up with.
Okay. I know you said it's a motion, but is that something
Well, I
that's more of a recommendation?
started out as a motion, but I didn't know whether it was a recommendation, that's why I ended up with recommended. I'm not sure whether it's necessary or not.
Okay, so Ms. Phillips is recommending it. Mr. Tiller?
It is not a motion, but I would like to jump on board the bandwagon, and I would also ask Ms. Phillips if a format would be something similar to APAB-001 to start off with.
APAB 218, we need to put the year in there, so APAB-18-001.
Definitely needs to be year and the date.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have the month and the year, if you just have resolution 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, Jennifer, I think this is probably something we can deal with an executive
Yes,
committee.
I think
If
so.
it doesn't change the content of the resolution, it's just a bookkeeping thing, and it doesn't require action by this body.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Okay, so, this year, 2018, we will go back and start, this process, I think this probably is about our fifth or sixth resolution this year. So we'll definitely do that, but I'll also add it to the October 7th executive committee meeting agenda. Also, I wanted to just to remind the body and the public of what happens after we pass a resolution. It does go immediately signed, and then it is emailed to the council, including the president of city council, and it's also sent to Theo Pace. Theo Pace committed to being our liaison to the mayor's office, and I have spoken with him, asking him if he has received, also it goes to planning as well, our support, if he's received our resolutions, and he has said that he's received them. It also goes to the clerk's office. I spoke with the clerk's office maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and we will be having our new clerk for the city of Atlanta. He will be here in January, so he'll be one of our speakers. I do believe it's time for us to get a refresher course, or if there's any other changes that have been made to his office, then he can communicate that to the body and to the public.
Madam Chair, quick
Yes,
question
ma'am.
for you. Since we're getting a new clerk, those of us who are officers, APAC delegates and officers, they've already been sworn in. We don't have to be sworn in every year. It's just the new delegates that have to be sworn in. But if you get a new clerk, do we have to be sworn in by that new clerk?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question, because I did have a conversation with, I forgot her name, the person is Pat, in the clerk's office, and which is why we do need to speak with him, because we need to know if there have been any changes to that process. What she did say to me is that any taking of oath of office will not be done at the APAC meeting. You'll be contacted directly on a time, date that's convenient for you, and more than likely it will be in the clerk's office somewhere in City Hall, and that's where you can take your oath of office. Okay, so, but I'll be in more conversation with them about, because in January when we have our new leaders, when they start, we do have the installation of leaders, kind of like a ceremony that we've had in the past. And so I'll keep you all abreast on how that will roll out in January. Okay. All right, so I'll add that to the executive committee agenda, and that is related to the numbers. Okay, we're going to now go back to our board presentations. Ms. Hubbard, do you have anything for Keep Atlanta Beautiful? Oh, you did?
I did about recycling.
Oh, okay, yes, yes, you sure did,
Us
okay.
in the Greenbrier that hired
Awesome,
additional suite officers.
okay. And look who we have in our midst, Ms. Thomas. So good to see you. Yes, one of our past presidents in the house. So would you like to come up and give us a board report on the license review board?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a couple of things that I'd like to bring to the attention to the board and to the audience. One, the License Review Board is continuing to meet and be on target with handling applications and due cause hearings. And if you'd like to see the minutes, you can find it online with the License Review Board, with the Atlanta Police Department website for the Atlanta Review Board. The other thing I'd like to do is to encourage all NPUs to make sure that you check the agendas to see if there are issues that are representing your NPU, and if you have some concerns, please have your members present at the meeting to express those to the board. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is the Atlanta Commission on Aging. Most of us in here fit that the 55 plus category that is very prevalent, but we don't seem to think a lot about the impact of the aging process and helping to make Atlanta into lifelong communities. And when elders are no longer able to live in their homes, what services that are needed? And I think we need to pay strictly attention to that and encourage your support of the Atlanta Commission on Aging and the efforts that we are undergoing. One of the things that the Atlanta Commission did on its legislative committee, we presented the notion of senior zones because we're developing more senior high-rises, and as I walk and catch the bus and MARTA, safety is a great issue for those populations to help us get out of cars. And we will be looking at senior zones, and that was presented at the state level. The State Department of Transportation, our issue was not accepted by COAGE, but the health department is looking at transportation as a major issue. And that's something that we're focusing on in terms of how seniors get around, get out of their homes, and how they get around in the community, and how safe is it for them. Those are issues that we need to look through a different set of lenses as we focus on the development of our population. There is one other item that we talk about the Gulch. And I want to take this opportunity to reminisce studies that have been done many, many years ago that focused on transportation, bringing a rail line from Chattanooga to Savannah. And we seem to have lost that discussion. And I think we need to put that back on the table. Our our rail from the rail station up in Buckhead has been a temporary location far too long. The bus station was moved during the Olympics from Lucky Street to its present location on Garnett Street as a temporary move. Now that we're talking about redevelopment of the Gulch and Atlanta's history as a developmental history as a transportation center, this is Drunell Thomas talking now, not the commission or anybody else. But transportation should be at the center point of the capital of Georgia, having that major transportation center with the rail lines, both passenger and commercial, what do you call it?
Rail?
Freight rail, right. Coming through will minimize the need for trucks and other things coming through the city. With all of the buses coming through the city, that could be a focal point to bring those buses into one focal point and redistribute that population in a more organized way. That's just Drunell Thomas saying, and I think that that's an opportunity. And then focus on the housing, shops, and other things that can be a part of a bustling, vibrant city center, state center. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Goshenski, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good to see you.
Thank you. Debbie Skupczynski, Chair of NPUF. Ms. Thomas, I appreciate, and we go back to your License Review Board presentation, and I appreciate the reminder to NPUs to send folks the minutes that are located online. However, those minutes are not up to date. They haven't been up to date for months. In fact, the last one I think that's been, was published was June 18th. I'm a regular user of that website and would really appreciate your help in getting those up to date so that we can use that as a reference for the NPs, especially for those cases like due cause that are on many agendas before they're actually heard. Thank you.
I'd like to add to Ms. Kinsey's report, the agendas on the LRB page on the website stopped at September 6th. There have not been any agendas listed, and it used to be the upcoming agenda would be on your website, and we could pull that agenda and know what cases are coming forward. The last one that's on there is September 6th, and it's October 1st. So if you would need to remind them that they, like Debbie said, they need to update that page, because when we try to call to find out about particular cases, a lot of times we can't get anybody in that office on the phone to tell us whether this case is coming up. And we have always relied on that agendas page to let us know what's there and what's coming up and when a case is going to be heard, so we know to be there. We can't continue to ask our citizens just to come to every LRB meeting with hopes that a case that we're interested in is going to be heard. Without the agendas, we're lost.
So,
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad.
so just FYI, I mean, I've actually been on the site as this conversation's happening. It is up to date as of right now. The 10-2 agenda is there. The minutes from September 25th all the way back to January 9th are there. I've clicked into them and reading them because I'm very interested in due cause and seeing how there actually been a couple of licenses that have been suspended for a year. So kudos to the LRB for actually bringing down the hammer on some of these people. So something has happened. It may have just happened recently, but it is up to date right now.
It just happened overnight. You probably heard us. Hurry up, get the before your tab starts. Yes, Ms. Thomas.
I'd like to say that a part of the citizens, and I'm hoping that I'm doing a fairly good job in representing the citizens, but we need your help in this process, and thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, at this time, we're gonna go into our committee reports. It should be short and brief. I do wanna make not a comment, but I guess everybody should know this by now, because I sent an email last month in reference to Mr. Bartell. So we received the email in reference to Mr. Bartell resigning from the executive committee as an officer, as well as the chair of those respective committees. Okay, good. All right, and so I just wanted to remind you all of that, and just in case you did not see the email, that he did do that. He mentioned in the email that he has secured a new contract, and so he does not have the time that he used to have, and we really appreciate him letting us know that, and we appreciate his service. He will still continue to be the alternate, and he is also the NT chair for J. And Mr. Dickerson, we appreciate you continuing to serve as well. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ross is not here. Mr. Martin, did you want to give an update?
Sure. Let's see, CHR met on the 10th of September. There were 5 of us present, myself, Ola Reynolds, Steve Carr, Donovan Dodds, and Richard Rao. We drafted the Gulch resolution that we have just passed today. We also reviewed the incentive tax abatement resolution that we also passed today. We have several other works that are in progress currently. Our next meeting will be on the 8th of October, 7 p.m., Chin Chin Restaurant, 1715 Howell Mill Road. Encourage you all to attend. The Zoning and Land Use Committee met immediately after the CHR committee. The same people were present for both meetings. We are working on several draft resolutions, none of them yet ready to bring before this body. Most significant of which I had also mentioned last month, we are working on a resolution asking the planning department to provide to the NPUs a set of boilerplate zoning conditions for those things that we might wish to condition on various zonings. The goal being to avoid the frequent situation where an NPU will attach a condition to zoning and staff will then argue against the validity of that condition when it goes before either the BZA or the CRP. So our next meeting for the Zoning and Land Use Committee will also be on 10/8. It will be at 7:45, also at Chin Chin Restaurant, 1715 Halma Road. Are there any questions?
I have a comment. Your committee reports. Thank you for your committee reports. Mr. Martin did submit those. I immediately emailed those last night. It probably was late knowing me because I'm a night owl. I forwarded them to everyone, so we do not have hard copies, but you should receive those via email. Mr. Carl?
There was a third meeting after zoning and CDHS. Martin and I did discuss the ad hoc committee on conflict resolution, which also should include mediation. And
So are you, because I was getting ready to ask Mr. Martin to report out on that particular ad hoc committee, so are you speaking to what went on in that, there really hasn't been an official meeting yet?
You're right, it was not an official meeting, and there was no three-person quorum. There were two people, Jim and myself.
Okay.
It was a casual session following the other meetings.
So you just want to talk about what you all talked in that, about in that meeting?
I just
or-
wanted to say what I just said.
Okay, great, thank
That's
you.
it. Now,
Awesome.
the other item was, you asked about committee on council, Terry Ross not being here. We had several people here, we had more than enough for a quorum. We elected Barbara Hubbard to chair the meeting. And
Mr. Carr, do I really have to go here?
you really have to what?
Do I really have to go where I'm about to go?
I don't know. If you want
I-
to go, it's outside and
Okay, because you know what I'm gonna say, because I've said it before. You don't know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay,
but
anything
if-
else other than reporting out on committee on council?
If Terry Ross is not there, we're going on without him.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Martin, did you want to report out particularly on the ad hoc committee and the email that you sent in reference to the next meeting?
Sure, yes. Well, I have been remiss in organizing the first meeting of that committee. I spent quite a bit of time trying to recruit Ben to participate in it, and then I got distracted by some other matters. So the first meeting is currently scheduled for Thursday, October the 4th at 7 p.m. This is also Chin Chin Restaurant, 1715 Alamo Road. I choose this venue because it's really convenient for me, and so if anyone would like to participate and it's not convenient for them, by all means let me know. I'm happy to go across town to accommodate someone else's schedule, but I'm not happy to go across town and sit alone in a meeting. In the email that I sent out, which you all should have received, I listed a series of sort of topics or questions that I think will form the agenda for that meeting. I have received a little bit of feedback on that so far, which I will incorporate into that agenda. Essentially, the questions that we will be addressing. Number one, is a new process and a new structure really needed? Number two, what individuals or organizations could constitute fair and impartial arbiters for APAB and NPU-related conflicts? Number three, what process must be followed to move conflicts out of meetings in which they arise and into arbitration process, which is to say, how do we separate those issues that can be resolved within the context of a meeting by the presiding officer or parliamentarian from those things that need to be taken out to an external body? How can we ensure that decisions reached in this process are accepted by all parties to a conflict? How do we ensure that conflicts of fundamentally similar nature are not repeatedly cycled through the process? How do we resolve issues of etiquette behavior that are not directly addressed by bylaws or Robert's rules? How do we address issues of bylaws or rules violations that are causally impossible to address by invoking the relevant rules? The example there would be the meeting, in fact, that we have today, which is not provided for in our bylaws, but the cancellation of our prior meeting had already occurred, and therefore it would be impossible to uncancel after the fact. The question of, does this process require a budget? How large should that budget be? The question of, should conflict resolution include a provision for censure of individuals deemed to be at fault in a conflict where that is found to be the case? And the question of how and where should we maintain a repository of bylaws, rules, relevant laws, and prior decisions by the body in charge of conflict resolution. Anything else that anyone would like to add, I encourage you to email me. I think my email is widely available, or you can phone me, 404-259-9869. That's all. Questions?
Did you give a time for the meeting?
I think I did, but it's 17.
So, okay.
October 4th, Ginger Restaurant, 17:15. I'll look.
Also, what I'd like for you all to do is to, out of all of that work, we need to come up with some type of scope of work, right? And then also, the goal or objective, and then some deadlines to put with your task. And then how many meetings you'd like to have, how many meetings you think you need to have in order to be able to come before the body with a recommendation. So kind of a timeline.
It's my goal to have 2 meetings prior to our APAB October meeting, which will be on the 20th, and to have a set of preliminary recommendations ready for that meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any more questions in reference to? Okay, Ms. Thomas, one.
Madam Chair, I rise to talk about the Community Leadership Training Institute of Atlanta and all of the work that is being done now through Jim Martin's committee. That may be something that we can institute, something that will plug into that Leadership Training Institute so that we don't, so there is not the level of duplicity of things that we're covering in this body. Those of us that are involved too much and have too many things already. So if we could combine some things and make them more efficient, then I think that would be a way to go for this organization.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Any more comments? Okay, this time we'll move right along to, let's see, that would be me. Okay. So, I'm not going to recite the upcoming events and meetings. You can see that we have a lot of to be determined. However, I would like, I did send an email to Ms. Pines as well as Mr. McKinley on 2 items. The first was to see if we can get December 5th reserved for the award ceremony, because it's a possibility, strong possibility, that we may have to come back here to have it. And traditionally, we've had our neighborhood awards in the council chambers, and that would be our first preference. And then we have our reception afterwards, the mezzanine, the corner, the 2nd floor, right? Corner there. So you can check to see. The time would be 9 to 2. Because what we do is have a short, brief meeting and go right into the awards, and then after that, the ceremony. Okay, so you can find out for us and follow up as quickly as possible.
So I'll follow up with Eric on Monday.
Okay.
Regarding your other requests as far as the bylaws,
Yes.
we do have the 2017 stamp version as well as the 2016 stamp version. I think you just wanted a copy of that.
Yes, I never received that stamped copy.
Did you
And
request
so-
it? Because I know
yeah.
that's the first email that I got, but I'll send that to you on Monday as well.
Yeah, because our last revisions of our bylaws was November 2016. And so, and that was when Tanya was here, and so we submitted it, and then when Erica came on board, I submitted it as well. So we just need to get a time-stamped bylaws, a copy of our bylaws, so we can go ahead and distribute them, and they'll be official.
Awesome.
Okay?
will you guys still be discussing potential revisions at the exec committee meeting for 2019?
You know, APAB, we normally can revise our minutes, our bylaws, all throughout the year. We really don't see any, we'll be making any revisions or changes as of right now.
Okay.
I will go ahead and put it on our October 7th agenda as well, so, okay? So that's that for planning. And that's all that I have. Mr. Tiller?
Yes. Back, I believe it was earlier in the year, maybe March, September, I attended in your stead a meeting at planning, and there were several items discussed. One was parking. I think we've gone through that and exhausted that. The other one was identification badges. That sounded like something that you guys were interested in pursuing, and I have never heard anything back on that.
Yes, we actually spoke about this maybe a couple months ago. And also it was read into the August meetings, meeting minutes. And it's all good. So it's actually good news. Good news and not so good news. The good news is that we will be able to get the name badges. However, only 25 were approved, which makes no sense because we basically, our body is made up of at least 50 or less than 50 people, and we don't always know who's going to show up. And so what I recommended to planning, and Mr. McClendley and I and Ms. Pines have spoken about this, is to go ahead and get 50 approved, and that make it effective January 2019. Is that how you?
Absolutely.
Remember that?
And that will be the case.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Does that answer your question, Mr. Tiller?
Yes, it does, and I apologize because I was absent.
No worries. Okay. McKinley, McKenley, right? Okay. Mr. Tiller wants to make some remarks about Mr. Bartel.
Actually, it's not about him, it's about the positions.
Oh.
I think transportation and utilities are extremely important. And of course, with Ms. Thomas actually stating some of her concerns about a central transportation hub within the city of Atlanta as opposed to the scattered smutterings, that we probably should have a transportation, at least interim, and of course utilities interim appointed. I really fear to do this, but I would promote myself as a transportation interim if the chair would accept that, and somebody would help me move on that because that is not my forte, but I think it's very important.
I accept your volunteerism to serve. And does that mean that you'll also be the interim for utilities as well? Because we're kind of combined for now, temporarily. Next year is a whole
Strange as it
other
may seem.
leadership, and they can do whatever they like.
Strange as it may seem, and I really hesitate to do this, but because of the importance of it, I would recommend that we go backwards and request Jack Brunner to fill that position again. And I remember the history of that, but I think that as far as his knowledge and was extremely well appreciated, even though sometimes his temperament may have gotten the best of him, but I believe that this could be done by him and could be done well. And that would be my recommendation.
So are you unvolunteering yourself to be the interim chair of transportation, and you're recommending
No. It's two separate committees.
And then Jack
And I
Randall.
would recommend that Jack, who previously held that position, be sought to serve on that because he was extremely knowledgeable.
Right.
And I appreciate his knowledge, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, let me say my little 2 cents.
I would also like to echo Eric's comments, because that's what I was going to speak to.
Okay, what I'd like to,
Subject to Jack's approval.
right. So what I'd like to say is, there was a reason why Jack no longer served as chair of that particular committee. And to be honest with you, until he comes here to a meeting and apologize for his behavior, okay, because he was cursing, using profanity, and he pretty much was almost like an all-out assault on me. Okay, and it's all been on video, it's all on camera, okay? So I would like to ask Mr. Rundler, I will call him personally and ask him to come to a meeting. He can come to the executive committee meeting, okay, and apologize, not only to me, but to this body.
I
Because,
would like to put this in the
Okay,
lap of our
that's-
parliamentarian,
like I said, that's just my comment.
and I want to see a mutual apology. Maybe this ought to be the first situation dealt with our ad hoc committee on council on conflict resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but you won't be receiving an apology from me because I did not use profanity, nor did I accost him, okay? But we'll put it on the executive committee agenda.
The ad hoc committee is with regard to forming a process for conflict resolution. This would be a conflict required resolution, so that's sort of putting the cart ahead of the horse.
Well, let's
Madam
do it
Chair.
side by side.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Toomer.
I was present. I understand what took place. And rather than seeking an open forum apology, I know it was not done to me, therefore I don't feel the hurt as much as you did. But sometimes I think that things like that are a way of not getting things done. If we could, behind closed door, possibly, address that
Executive committee meeting.
in a different manner than an apology, I think that might be more acceptable to the party. I think it's very sensitive, and I think it's the personality trait, and maybe we could put some stipulation on that, if that were to happen again, that he would automatically be removed.
Madam Chair,
But let me, hold on, Ms. Phillips. Mr. Toomer, with all due respect, it was you who voiced your concern of his behavior,
I know.
okay? And even when it came up that he wanted to be the chair on that utility, on that particular committee, you voiced some concerns about his behavior.
I know.
And so I'm a little taken aback. But however, I respect your viewpoint. Ms. Phillips?
Madam Chair, I remember distinctly that he sent out a memo, an email to all of us saying that he could no longer be the chair of that committee because of his change in lifestyle, his baby being born, and a number of other things that he put into the memo. He basically had resigned from that committee before all of that happened.
That's true as well. He did put some things in writing. Yes, Doctor?
Yes, in view of what's happening with Brett Kavanaugh in this government, we really have to be gender respectful. There's a history of disregard in this country.
For women.
Yes, of all races, the Native American, the European, and ladies of African descent. So that should be in the resolution, gender respect. There is no compromise here. If even we disagree vehemently about something somebody does, there is no excuse for cursing, for anything of that nature. And I know in the Houses of Parliament, because I lived abroad, if you do that to a member, you are sanctioned. And then eventually there can be things to remove you. So that ought to be in your resolutions to deal with that, before things even get any further. Thank you.
He said multiple times to show remorse, but at any rate, Mr. Tillman, did you want to?
No.
Okay,
No, I'm saying.
all right,
I'm
Ms.
saying,
Bush?
I understand.
I very rarely seldom get up, but I've served on a lot of national committees, and, you know, you deal with different personalities and everything. But that's why you have Robert's Rules of Order. And so, if maybe we need to revisit and have a training session on Robert's Rules of Order. Because if you have things in your bylaws that are written to prevent that sort of behavior, it's cut and dried. So maybe we should take a step back and revisit using Robert's Rules of Order in the proper context.
Thank you. I believe our bylaws do address,
Yeah,
as it relates to appointing chairs of committees.
You have the authority to appoint committee chairs, that's specified in the bylaws. As far as the Robert's Rules of Order governing behavior, that kind of comes around to something that I mentioned before with regard to the ad hoc committee, that once something has happened, even if it is in violation of bylaws, you can't cause it to unhappen. And so therefore, how do you deal with it after the fact? And there we have an issue, because we have no structure in place for doing that, and that's one of the things that we're going to be addressing.
I know the difference. Robert's rules has specific elements within it to deal with disruption. However, the problem is that it only deals with it at that time, and then they can come back the next time and do what they can, and then you have to follow the process again. And you cannot legislate respect. Okay, and it just can't, you can write everything you want, but that does not mean that I will follow it. I can take the liberty and be counter to whatever is expressed in writing, and we just, you know, we just have to get a better handle on our mouths to work better with our brains and hearts and spirits.
Right. Mr. McKinley, I know that planning, they conduct parliamentary procedure training. There was one, 2 or 3 months ago. And they used to do it at least once or twice a year. And so what I'd like to see if perhaps, this year is almost a wrap, but just so Ms. Bush does know that we have partnered with planning, with parliamentary procedures training in the past, as well as it's addressed in the MPD leadership training.
Right.
And so it may make more sense to have it more than once a year in order to have some refresher types of training courses. Ms. Thomas?
Madam Chair, I rise simply to say that parliamentary procedures are important in terms of our knowledge, but what's most important is relationship building. And parliamentary procedure does not necessarily build trust among team members. And I see the whole NPU system as being a member of an Atlanta team. We represent the world's finest. And somehow we need to come together to find a way to build trust on both sides of the aisle. We have different thoughts, we have different opinions, but many times we need to use each other to get the best of what needs to be done. I don't know if we have done a true team building exercise exercise for the NPU system. But I think that would be really, really important.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. At this time, we're rolling into public comment and announcements. I have one announcement that I want to remind again, and that is our next meeting, which will be Saturday, October 20th, 10 a.m. in this room here at City Hall. And our guest speakers are Commissioner Keisha Powell. She's the director, the Commissioner for Director of the Department of Watershed, as well as Chief Justice Cassandra Kirk, who is the Fulton County Magistrate Court.
Fair enough. So since we don't have a public safety chair, there was one public safety thing that I wanted to communicate to the body. It's that recently there was a study done around the pay of Atlanta Police Department officers. And I would just like to take 1 minute to just read the executive summary, just a few lines here. So one, there is considerable variability in both the pay plan ranges for individual police ranks and the number of pay levels in each rank across the peer group being other police departments in the area. APD's pay plan ranges by position are consistently at the lower end of the peer group for most police ranks. Additionally, they are generally more narrow than those of peer agencies. So to be clear, that means that not only are their salaries lower, but if they get to the highest range of those salaries, it's still going to be lower than everybody else. The bands themselves are constricted. It says that pay ranges for recruit through lieutenant ranks are 20% or more below the market ranges. Pay for higher ranks are slightly more aligned to peer pay than lower ranks, but still lag the market. Number of years in rank for APD officers to advance to the maximum of the pay range is greater than most peers, despite APD officer pay plan maximum being lower in the sample. In other words, it takes them more years to get paid less. So I think that, a lot of good conversations have happened over the last few years around quality of policing and things along those lines, and there are lots of discussions to be had there. But I think it's fair to say that the way that you're compensating your officers has some impact on the quality of policing that you give. And when APD actually has a training plan that far outstrips any other police department in the area, they're required, by state law, they're required to give 8 weeks of training. APD gives something like 39 weeks of training. APD makes big investments in their officers, and what essentially happens is those officers come in and they get that great training, they get pulled off to other police departments. So we're basically subsidizing policing all throughout the region. What we've done in UM is we have, or what we're doing is we're looking into writing a letter to the city just to support the idea of just paying these officers more fairly. I would encourage other MPUs to just think about doing the same. If you'd like to see this report, I'll send it to Madam President, and so that she can send it out to everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to add our fire department as well as our first responders as well. Mr. Howard?
Thank you. Greetings, Madam President, and APAB delegates and special greetings to you folks watching your APAB organization in action. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. And I think it's great when one of the officers step down from the podium, step down there and come to the podium. At one time, this was a convention. All officers would come and stand in line with the citizens. Regarding Robert's Rules of Order training, Robert's Rules of Order training, I heard that there was some training 2 or 3 months ago. So I would just like to know how many of the 50 APAB delegates received that training? Well, yeah, how many received those? How many?
We've all had that training, but.
So all 50 of these, so everybody here could raise their hand and say that they have received that training 2 or 3 months ago?
Oh, this year's?
You said, your words were that there was Robert's Rules of Order training 2 or 3 months ago, and I just want to see if this can be validated. I heard one person say.
Mr. McKinley can speak with it,
Okay.
to it, because it was included in the parliamentary procedures.
Okay.
Good morning. Yes, sir. We had as part of our NPU leadership training, we had a session focused on parliamentary procedure. Again, that was about 2 or 3 months ago. If not even, maybe 2 months ago.
Okay, so that is quite different from the parliament, the Robert's Rules of Order training that we've had in the past. About how many minutes was that exercise?
It was about a 2-hour session.
The parliamentary procedure portion?
The entire session was dedicated.
No, on Robert's Rules of Order, how many minutes was spent on imparting Robert's Rules of Order information to the delegates?
So again, it was a 2-hour session.
Okay,
on parliamentary procedure.
okay, that's fine, I'm through with that topic.
Okay,
And
go
then,
ahead, Mr. Howard.
the last one is, I just want to say shame on Ricardo Jacobs, Antonita Robinson, and the NPUR9, that S&S Cafeteria, a haven where senior citizens from the neighboring high rises would come and enjoy a meal from time to time, is closing when we have these folks sitting on Invest in Southwest Atlanta, Renew Atlanta, Campbellton Road Phase 1 and Phase 2 and Phase 3, Fort McPherson implementing process. All of these things are happening, and S&S Cafeteria has been notified, and they decide that they have to close. Shame on NPUR.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Ms. Carter?
About a month ago, I went to the City Council Committee on Community Development and Human Services. At the end of the agenda was a date, 29th of May. This is when Council Person Madeline Archibald, who's the chair of that committee, asked publicly about the state of the NPUs and citizen engagement. Or citizen participation, but they're close cousins. I called her office, I asked for also an update. She said that she talked with a council staffer by the name of Corinne. I called Corinne. Corinne said Tim Keene was looking into it. So that was a couple of months after the 29th of May. I have recently heard is that there is a non-governmental group called something of citizen engagement.
Center for Innovation Projects.
Thank you, Center for Civic
Innovation.
Innovation, yes, 115 MLK across the street from Fulton County Government Building. And as you all know, I play with the internet, and I asked a friend of mine to find a person's name and phone number. I already sent him an email and with my name and phone number, and I have not heard a response. So from the 29th of May, which the question from Madeline Archibald for an update on the NPU system and citizen engagement, where are we? I don't know. Where are we?
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Spoke with Ms. Pines in reference to what Mr. Carter is talking about. My understanding is that we all will be receiving an email soon. She did not give a date in reference to getting some input from us in reference to the NPU system and as well as that particular Center for Innovation. What's the full name?
Center for Civic Innovation.
Civic Innovation, yes. That we'll be receiving something via email, but we actually can be engaged and be a part of that process.
Okay.
I also mentioned, excuse me, Mr. McKinley, I also mentioned that I wanted to remind planning of Dr. Newlark's study that he's done on NPUs with his students. We still want to continue to engage him because there's further work that needs to be done, and perhaps we can marry those two efforts together. Mr. McKinley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, just wanted everybody to know the audit that the Center for Civic Innovation is doing is completely outside of our sphere. They're handling the entire overview / audit. So we have the Office of Planning pretty much has nothing to do with that right now at this point.
Okay, all right. At this time, I'd like to get Ms. Thomas.
Very briefly, there's one issue that I didn't bring to the attention of the public and to this body, and that is the issue of equitable development. And a lot of changes is happening in Atlanta, but many of the indigenous Atlantans are being left out in the process. So the definition of equity should be inclusive of indigenous Atlantans, and you may want to ask me, what does indigenous mean? That means those of us that have been here for generations.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Okay, with there being no more business at hand, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, it's been so moved, and can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a great weekend, and don't forget about Georgia Stand Up is having a meeting right after this one at the IBEW building at 12:30 in reference to the Gulch Project.
Was everyone looking around to see a 4-foot cord that our videographer has lost? A 4-foot cord, thank you.